Please give a warm welcome to director Jon M. Chu.
Thank you, thank you. It's so nice.
Thanks for being here, Jon.
It's great to be here. Beautiful, beautiful out here.
Well, now that you're here, because you brought the sun, it started. It was raining.
I did bring the sun. Yes, yes, yes.
Overcast. I've been dying to ask. Speaking of overcast and darkness and lightness and sunshine, the first half of the film is one big sunrise, and then the latter half of the film is one big sunset. The pivotal scenes with Glinda happen at sunrise. When she meets Fiyero, we see the sunrise, and Elphaba is the pivotal scenes. It's sunset.
It's something we talked about with Alice Brooks, who's our cinematographer, who I've worked with since college, 20-something years ago. Yeah, can you believe that? I met her at a Starbucks. She was one semester older than me, and she was the superstar. And I was like, please shoot this musical. I'm doing my first musical. And so we got to do my first musical 20-something years ago. And we love this movie. Searching for Bobby Fischer is like the one that we always reference. It's... watching Connie Hall talk about it back in the day, we were just enamored by him, and he would talk about, you know, that movie could have been shot like a sitcom. It was a lot of indoors and things, and the sun was his focus was on the sun would light everything, and the darkness we'd play in the shadows. And so we always say play in the shadows. That's like, if you have the resources, you like play in the shadows. That's where the magic happens. And so for this movie in particular, where color and shadows and light is such a big part of it, part of the conversations were, oh, what if the truth is in the shadows always, and the lie is in the light? And so for how you know, even if you think about the Oz dust, when Elphaba comes in, that little moment right before she walks into the Oz dust, we were supposed to have a little extra set there for a moment, and we didn't have that. And but it was really important to have this moment where Elphaba comes in, and she's just so excited for this party, and it's just a little moment, and there was like too much light, so we had to like pull that light away and have this little spotlight away from it, so before she got there, she could have this moment. And so we did that a lot, even in the attic, when the truth at the bottom of the attic before defying gravity, when she says something has changed within me, something's not the same, and to play in those shadows was something that we really played with, and it's hard because, you know, Elphaba has a brim on her hat, and that covers the eyes, and we do long takes, because for Glinda, for Cynthia and Ari, some of those things like the Oz dust are so emotional that it's hard to just like, hey, do that one moment where you look at her, and we just didn't. She couldn't do that, and they couldn't hold that space for that long. So we did the whole take, every different lens. We did the whole thing. It was like a 15-minute oneer each time, which means Karsten, our camera operator, was a warrior. He had to his back was like broken by the end of that. But he was right there, and then every time the cameras, and we weren't like whipping around, but it was a 360 shot, like we had to move left and right. And so we had to build in over 500 lighting cues in that. Well, Alice had to. I was like, just make it happen. And so without, you know, camera shadow on her, to make sure that wherever we were, that we could always get light into her eyes so we could see it. And so anyway, that was a big part of this for sure.
But I mean, we have the association that light means truth, and that darkness is something that you want to stay away from. You do the opposite. It's like light is something that is not truthful, and then, you know,
it's the performative part. That's the performative in the light, you know.
And Elphaba needs to go into the dark in order to understand the truth about herself.
And that was, you know, that is such a thing we get the privilege of doing when you're dealing with the Wizard of Oz, that it's such a it's the American fairy tale. It's the one, my parents came from China, and that was the American dream, like the yellow brick road. There's a guy behind the curtain that's going to give you all your heart's desire. And Wicked was always a sort of subversive relook at that story that we were told. Oh, this is what a hero looks like? Oh, this is what a villain... Who said that? How did we come to that conclusion? And oh, wait, when you're in black clothing, we're supposed to feel what way? And when you're in white clothing, you're supposed to feel this way? And Wicked allows you the opportunity to flip those things and to say, hold up, those are just elements. That is not the actual character of a person, and we talked about that a lot and got to dig in there for it.
Pardon me for deconstructing your film from a geeky point of view, but there are key moments that when Ariana and Cynthia meet each other that. They look straight at the camera.
Yeah.
When they first meet each other, when we go to the Us Dust Ball, when Popular Number takes place, and also during Defying Gravity, where they look at each other, but they actually look at the camera and they have a connection.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the madness behind that decision?
Yeah. I did a short film at film school called Silent Beats, and it's a black and white short film, and it was no sync. We're not allowed to have sync sound and all that, but it was about perspectives. And a boy goes into a convenience store, and everyone who sees the boy, he's an African American boy, has this assumption of who he is, and you flash to what their assumption of what this kid is doing in this. And while that's happening, we see the reality of his life and what he's getting off the shelf and what that means to his life. And even back then, what I loved is perspective, is this idea that the most important beats aren't the beats that you hear, it's the silent beats in between, the beats that you don't hear, that we make judgments, and we can't help making judgments, but it's that moment before being aware of those judgments that are powerful. And in the movie itself, at the end of it, he looks right at the camera, at the audience, because we set it up in a way that you have assumptions about this kid as well, and that it's the exact opposite. So it's something that I've always loved, that movies, we always say it puts you in the perspective of someone, a new point of view, but to actually test the audience and say, and especially in Wicked, where this iconography is so, the Wicked Witch. Oh, what is she? The silhouette of the Wicked Witch, the fire, the yellow brick road has such specific iconography that triggers things in our brain. To actually literally put someone in the driver's seat and have them look at them, to me it's just it's both arresting but also really makes you look at somebody, and maybe makes you even feel uncomfortable. Specifically in the Oz Dust scene too, it's a very uncomfortable scene. So uncomfortable, it's in the middle of a giant musical number, and we go to silence. And so for them to look at us, I think it's sort of, for me, it was sort of our way of looking at ourselves a bit. Mm-hmm. I think that the big question in the movie that is asked in the beginning is are you born? How does wickedness happen? Are you born with it, or is it thrust upon you? Mm-hmm. And that exploration of what is wicked is so fascinating, because those two answers, either one, are actually very passive. There's no, that removes you from the control of that. But I think we're at a moment where it's like, we get to choose every day whether we're good or wicked. But we have them both. We're capable of both. We've seen it. We can be cruel and we can be kind. And sometimes being kind isn't being naive and easy. Kindness actually takes you walking through the fire a little bit and feeling other things to have empathy. It requires sadness. It requires anger to feel that. And so I think, to me, we're both Elphaba and Galinda in this moment in time. We had this story in our head about what we are and who we are, and now it's been revealed, whether it's after COVID or during whatever it may be, and we're looking at ourselves, and what happens when you find out the truth? What happens when you wake up from the dream? Who are you then? what are you going to decide who you are? And we hope we could be Elphaba. When we watch her, I think we're yearning to be Elphaba, to rise above it all and face those people. But in a weird way, we're all Galinda. Or are we ready to actually like pop our own bubbles? And that doesn't say other people. It means like me. That means I'm looking at this movie like, who am I? Who am I? What am I going to decide to do? And popping your bubble is very difficult to do because I can scroll, I can order food, I can get my thing, but to actually like release this idea of that happiness is the goal and to actually feel the anger and this frustration from other people of what their lives may be. And I think that's why it breaks our hearts when Madame Morrible comes in and she offers her hand, and we see that Glinda's just not ready to like let go of her own dream, and hugs her back because her need for feeling accepted and belonging is so strong and not making a stir at that moment. And I think in movie 2 we start to explore that even more. But that was always a part of this conversation of how do we get this feeling that these paths are for us to choose, and that every day our little decisions veer us good or wicked, and it can be imperceivable. Actually, I think that's the crazy thing about wickedness, is that it's little by little until you don't know it's happening.
Yeah. Thank you. There's so much you just said that I have many follow-ups.
My answers are very long.
No, but I love it. But then, like, I have to keep track of all the follow-ups. You talked about bursting bubbles. There's so many circles in this movie. And, you know, at the end, Elphaba breaks through that circle. And even in the dancing through light, we have the circles happening. Can you walk us through that iconography?
Yes. Well, in order to build Oz, we had to have some sort of theory, because you could do anything for Oz. I mean, we're referencing the L. Frank Baum illustrations from Denslow. We're thinking about the themes of it, but ultimately, what Nathan Crowley, our amazing production designer, and Paul Taswell, our amazing costume designer, what we found was, in order to figure out what the design of this world is, we had to actually understand what the culture of Oz was. If this was not a dream, if we're saying to the audience, this is a real place because this is a real relationship with real stakes, then this place has to be real. Okay, so then what is her power? Oh, is her power that this broomstick carries her everywhere? That's kind of awkward too. So the power's in the broomstick, not her? No, she has to imbue that power. Okay, so it has to be within her.
Which is amazing in the final sequence. I'm glad you brought that up, because when she grabs the broom, I was wondering, is it the broom that's leading her, or it's some power inside of her that leads her?
And that's why we have to establish her relationship with gravity in the beginning. That's what we always said. It's a relationship with gravity. It's a relationship with nature. Oh, so that's why she's so in tune with the animals. Yes, the animals raised her, but she's a child of two worlds. Spoiler alert. So that so she's plugged into nature, and nature is not perfect. Nature is messy and can be violent, and you need the fires so new things can grow, and you need the things to break, and you need that anomaly to happen to have the next evolution of the thing. And yet here in Oz, when the wizard came in, he wanted to sort of separate people in their different lands and create this perfect circle and say, happiness is the goal. You don't have to worry about anything. Just do your job and follow the yellow brick road all the way. I'll take care of the rest. And that, again, takes the responsibility off the individual people. And yet Elphaba comes into this movie as we always thought everything's circular, oh, perfect. And then she's the Z in Oz. She's the break point. That's why breaking glass is the sharp edges. The hat is the sharp edges. Everywhere you see Elphaba, and even in Defying Gravity, you see the circle with the edges when her and Elphaba, Glinda are singing. It is the introduction of chaos, because the chaos is necessary for the next step. Don't run away from it. Don't hide your heads from it. You actually have to the only way out is through. And so that's sort of where it all came from.
Okay, you're encouraging me to go down even more
the
geeky.
yellow brick road. No.
In a couple of times between Glinda and Elphaba, you do this 360-degree panning of the camera. I would love to hear your interpretation of it feels so urgent and necessary for you to circle around them.
Yeah, we tried to hold back as much as we could of when we did the 360 around them, but it always felt like when the things come together, when the chaos and the and sort of the cleanliness come together, that was the time of perfect harmony is to go around. Even her glasses, it's sort of an infinity, a sort of symbol with it. So we try to pick our moments when that happens, because everyone's such in separate worlds. In a way, there was a moment where we realized, it's sort of a Pleasantville thing, that every character lives in the story. And what happens, each character at some point has to wake up from that story and ask a first real question. So when Fiyero is in that forest and she looks at him and she says, well, he's like, I'm deeply shallow or whatever. And she goes, oh, you're not, otherwise you wouldn't be so unhappy. And she like stops down. He looks at her, and if you know, you know, but his brain literally breaks right there. And he almost pauses like a glitch in the Matrix, and he can't process that. That actually shot was like 12 seconds longer, but we cut it a little bit short. But what he's giving in there is he's seeing the reality for the first time.
There's
he can't quite handle it, and there's a sunset
background
happening right there, exactly. And it's his first question. Bach at the end of the movie, and everyone has abandoned him. This guy who only wants to be accepted by somebody, anybody, and he looks up into the sky, and everyone's leaving him. All his friends are gone, and it's the first time he doesn't look joyful. That's his first question. That'll be the first thing, And in the Ozdas with Glinda, when she sees Elphaba in the middle of that circle, and he says, Fiyero says, she doesn't give a twig what anybody thinks, and he says, no, she does. That's and so she has to act on. I mean, the question is, what do you do after that? So we explore that more in movie 2, but yes, that's. We're trying to break that circle every few moments. So.
Color is so important in the film.
Yeah.
Color, contrast, and I'm not afraid to ask this question, but there's color dynamic happening that mirrors kind of rainbow. We have the pink that is popular. We have the red at the Emperor's Mansion. We have blue for the Oz ball.
Yep.
And green, of course, Emerald City.
Yep.
But it's deeply symbolic, the colors. Can you indulge us and walk us through that dynamic?
It was very intentional. I want every color of the rainbow in this movie in each different scene. Again, it's sort of where do these colors go? When do they start to mix? And when do they start to sort of collide with each other? Each character had a color. I mean, that's sort of the easy part, that, Glinda is pink and Elphaba is green. And Fiyero is blue, and Morrible is purple, and Bach is orange, and we tried to stick to all of these things. And because the question is, does she want to be degrenified? Like, how does she want to mix in with all of this? And I love the moment in Wizard and I where she has a moment of, if I could ask the wizard anything, would you, if he said I could degreenify you, would you want that? And all the colors in there are sort of going, and there's certain colors, what we found in our camera tests, actually take away the green on her skin. And you see Elphaba, and the color is actually that reddish pink. So in the dorm room, there's certain moments where that reddish pink are hitting her, and the green basically disappears on her. So yeah, we're playing with color throughout. We have a lot more to go in movie 2, so I won't get too far into it about what we're going to do with that. But this one was definitely wanted to parse out the different spaces before they sort of all collide.
Earlier, you talked about perspectives, and I want to latch on to the fact that the Broadway show, we see mostly from the narrator's point of view, which is Glinda, and her perspective, and the audience is riding with her, and then when Elphaba arrives, it's like we feel she's the outsider. But in the film, you switch the perspective, where it's weird from the get-go. We sympathize with the outlier. Can you tell us about the necessity of switching the perspective?
Yeah, there's two things that we discovered as we were breaking the script from a stage show to a movie. One was, okay, if it is, we needed more room. There was just, we had to break it into two because there was just not, it would have been not Wicked if you had to take out all these songs and change the plotting of it. So once we decided, okay, Defying Gravity is the end of movie one, then that has to be the most sad. It cannot feel like a half movie. It has to feel like this is what the audience wants from the get-go in this film. Okay, well then you have to understand her relationship with gravity. Okay, that's a part of her life. Okay, then you have to go backwards, and where is this in her life? Oh, we have to add scenes as she's a child in order to understand. Oh, wait, in the show it's confusing. Are they scared of her green? Because they talk about it. Or are they scared of her power? Oh, those are two separate things in the show. We got to combine it. When she cries at the birth, the power is seen. Her this odd relationship with gravity is witnessed. So it's tied together. Those two things are tied. So we had to clean that up a little bit. And then once you're there, okay, and she's a kid. She's getting teased, which is not in the show. Okay, and what did she do? She has this power that when she wants to protect somebody, that power comes in the relationship with gravity. And so. So going backwards into there, then you keep going, and you realize that, okay, this actually movie has to be all about Elphaba. And in the show, you go back to those opening scenes with Glinda, so you have the benefit of returning, so you can leave some breadcrumbs and then come back. And she's basically the host. Glinda's the host of the night, inviting people in.
But like a vaudeville.
Yeah, she's a vaudeville. It is a vaudeville act. She's like, hey, well, come check this thing out. And she like winks at the audience. She makes jokes with the audience. And in the movie, that's just not the case. You walk in, and the audience you have to get the audience to buy in to this, and you have to get them to buy into a musical world. And so in the show, when Elphaba drops in, she's the joke. She's the, oh, look, that's the Wicked Witch in this world, because we've already accepted that we're in a musical, and then she drops in and ha ha ha, let's laugh at her the whole time, and then she has to win you over. In the movie, we're like, what the fuck is this musical? What's going on? Do I want to believe in this or not? And then Elphaba drops in, and Elphaba's us, and Elphaba's like, where the heck did I come into? Why is everybody singing? And she walks into that dorm room. It's a moment. That dorm room scene, that first dorm room, is not in the show. But we needed a moment of a real meet and greet in the actual space that they're going to share. And she comes into this pink world. We always call it. Okay, she's walking into Glinda world, and she's like, "What the hell has happened?" And this place is singing, and she doesn't seem like a singer until
The Wizard and I. And,
there it is.
And it's so poignant that she tremulously starts to sing. It's heartbreaking.
It's when she says, "Did that really just happen?" And you realize, oh my gosh, she can sing. Oh my God, she can sing, and she can sing, and by the end, she can sing bigger than anyone. And when you use the power of the medium itself, of the musical itself, to help communicate the journey of a character itself, with the best singers in the world, of course. I mean, oh my gosh, it's working for us. Now the musical's cooking. Now it's not just a thing you put on a story. It is a part of the dialogue of the story.
That's actually, you used the actual singing aspect, which normally the audience will go like, oh my God, this feels so awkward. The singing, you actually use it to tell your story.
Yeah, I think people, when you're not used to a musical, and we had to make this for everybody, not just the fans of Wizard of Oz, not just the fans of Wicked, not just musical fans, but people who knew nothing about either of those things. For me, it's, okay, well, that's fans of movies. Okay, fans of a story. So how do we integrate it as tightly as possible? You cast Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, okay? So that the craftsmanship is not a question. It is how close can they tie it to their character. And since music is literally a part of their lives, I mean, they're songbirds, but the power is not their voice, even though that is the best in the world. It is their level of being able to expose their wounds for the camera, to like be vulnerable enough. And so when we tie that together with our world, then you get a very powerful nerve ending that you can start to pull through. And I felt a very big responsibility because we talk about this on the set, and you can shoot it, and you can build the things, and you have all the people working so hard to communicate each set piece and everything. But in the edit room, you can ruin it. And so I had to really be aware at and you can ruin it in the mix. You can do a great edit and ruin it in the mix. Because the sound can feel fake, or you don't hear the door close, and it suddenly sounds like you're in an MTV music video or something. And so, every moment had to be about trying to make it feel as connected to real life as possible, even though it was a musical. And I think that we got as close as we could. I mean, those questions of like, okay, so when the pillow goes on our head, we have to hear the lyric. Yeah, but I also want to feel like it's happening there in front of us. And some songwriters don't like things to be covering, their lyric, because you have to hear it. And so we have to find, I'm lucky that I did In the Heights before this, because we went through a lot of these debates, and I went through a lot of trial and error. And in this one, I have Andy Nelson, who's like the best mixer in the world. And so we could find this very, very, very clearly. So, and that's the power of cinema. You could be as intimate as possible. You could be 2 inches from their face and know what they're saying is not the truth. And you could be 10,000 feet in the air and her flying, and you can feel what she's singing because you get to see it, how high she is, and you get to feel the vertigo when she spins upside down, what she is actually expressing. So when her intention aligns with our intention as filmmakers, aligns with the sound intention of the sound. There were some points where we had too much wind and too much things, and we had to bring it down. And sometimes we had too little of it. When all those things line up, when we're all on the same page, that's when you're in the audience and you forget that it's even happening. You're just on the ride.
There is so much symbolism in your film. I want to ask you about the fact the way we arrive into Shiz in your university is water and the importance of water. And then we lead to Oz in a train that is motored by clocks. And finally, the entrance to Oz. You break the fourth wall and we walk into Oz. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I think you're capable.
Thank you. I'm gonna give a lecture today. There's several different questions in there, but I'll say the first thing about travel. One, in the L. Frank Baum books, they talk a lot about waterways connecting everything, and before the road was ever there.
Water kills the Wicked Witch.
Of course, water is a potent symbol in the lore of Wizard of Oz. So that's always just fun to play with. She never touches water, but she gets real close. In Shiz, she's at the very bottom of where gravity can be. She's right there, and the frogs are even underneath there. And she, by the end, she's at the very cliffs, at the very end, at the highest point you could go, and she's just not ready to make that leap. And you see bluebirds flying over the rainbow, but she's not ready to go. So travel from, we were literally on the floor in the opening. We drop into the most famous crime scene in cinematic history. And it's not blood, it's water. And you see little hints, and we're dropping little hints. The blue feather, the broken glass, a map that's ripped up, a piece of propaganda, and then we see the symbol of the hat itself, and it's in the broken window. And then we burst out with the monkeys, and we say, oh, this is not a dreamland. This is a large landscape with living creatures that exist. So water, we wanted to create a history of Oz. So water was a part of the history of Oz that we wanted to implement. So Shiz, in order to know that Shiz has history before the wizard ever got here, their entrance is water. And we go in from, and later you see when her does the magic and the wizard emblem falls down, you see, animals used to teach here, used to be the main, they're the founders of this place. In the columns, you see them carved in the wall. So, okay, animals were a presence here, and it's dwindling. So in terms of travel, you go from road to boat to bicycle to train, and ultimately to flight. And it's also sort of some of the L. Frank Baum deconstruction of the American fairy tale, that progress of the, sort of the Industrial Revolution and the progress of America is through technology, and travel is like the main part of technology. So I love that we got to sort of, reflect that, and we're taking shots from American stories. Since we're breaking the American fairy tale, we're taking, when they go into Shiz, to me it's like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, when you're pulling into the parking lot of a high school. When there's a lot of little like nods and things to sort of American movies that I remember that we get to break in it. So,
which, by the way, Royal Wedding is one of my favorite movies, and then the Fiyero and were you alluding to Royal Wedding?
That and 2001. Like there's a lot of little things that yes, for sure. We have some stuff.
I interrupted you.
And E.T. Even at the end, you can feel like that. It almost feels like a John Williams score as she's going out, and the boom, boom, boom. Like there is all of it. And so anyway, I could go on and on. I could go crazy. I could go on crazy.
No.
But I love that there's this American history through that and this travel through that.
Which leads me to the fact that when the show first came out 20 years ago, and I was lucky to see Idina and Cheno in it, there was an urgency about the show because 9/11 had just happened, and people saw Wicked as a response to 9/11.
Yeah.
Now this movie feels so freaking urgent, about where we are today. Can you tell us about the urgency to the film?
Yeah. It came to me when we were in the COVID lockdown. They made the first call to, even though I'd been chasing it for many, many years. I didn't, because I had done Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, and I was sort of opening this new chapter for my own storytelling of movies, because I'd done many movies before that, but I really wanted to change the way I made movies and make movies that really meant something that only I could make, that only I could get made. And so, and once you do Crazy Rich Asians and you see people come out and you see how it can change the whole industry in a weekend, in a couple weekends, it changes you forever. You realize that this medium is very, very special and essential to how we progress. And so everything I was like, this is, and I also had kids, so everything I want to do has to have a purpose. And when Wicked came out, I was like, I wanted to do this my whole life, but is this the right one to do now? Is it too old-fashioned? Is it a thing? And I started rereading it again, and it's those lines, something has changed within me, something is not the same. And those words were more stirring than I had ever read them before. I was like, oh my gosh, we're all in this moment of not knowing what's next. And that is the scariest moment, because we in those moments where we don't know where, then the strong man takes the lead, and who's gonna be the strong man? And what is going to happen? And I love this, and I love that we don't give an answer, that this is more of, in a weird way, a question of which way do we decide, which road are we gonna take? So that, and just so you know, at the end, when Bach is looking up and there's chaos all around him, I kept calling back to a moment. I would talk to this with Ethan. When I was going to USC, I was shooting my 480, which is like they choose 4 directors, and it's the one you want, and I got chosen. And our first weekend we shot, and the second weekend 9/11 happened. And it freaked everyone out. And everyone started leaving campus. I saw people's bags going out of and we were in the film school, and I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, what's the point of what we do? I should probably leave. And my teacher saw me there sort of like lost in thought, and she sat down with me, Brenda Goodman, and she said, what's wrong? I said, I don't know if this is worth it, what we're doing. Like, what are we doing? There's like so much bigger things. And she's like, this is the moment that the storyteller is the most important. The storytellers set the horizon line. Yeah. And I never forgot that. And we stayed. And I remember that night going on the parking lot, and they had shut down LAX and everything, so it was silent in downtown LA, except for the distant sound of fighter jets, and you couldn't see them, but you could hear them. And my friends were up there, and that's that moment with Bach. He's just up there like, where the hell are we going? And getting back on set, shooting this movie with my short film at the time, healed us in a way that we just had to keep going. And I think that's ultimately when I in this moment right now, are we searching for a happy ending, or are we realizing that happy endings, there is no ending. It's always a to be continued. That, oh, look, it's tomorrow. We have tomorrow. And the main thing is you have to just keep walking. You have to just keep walking. And I love that, because maybe that's what stories need to tell us. Survive. You may be wrong. Your friend may be wrong. You may need to forgive them. Maybe your friend and you have different dreams and you have to go separate ways and never see each other again. But that could also be okay. It doesn't diminish what you had. I think that nuance of how we're painting the canvas for our next generation of what to expect and not to expect the perfect thing, I think is important. And I think movies have the opportunity to do that in its form.
One last question. As we're in those final moments and they're going up the stairs, they're all this Oscar Diggs posters.
Yes.
Who is Oscar?
We're not digging Oscars. Let's be clear about that. But
Yeah.
Oscar Diggs is the name of the wizard before he ever came to Oz. Yes.
And is that a tease about what's happening in part 2?
I can't tell you that.
Okay. But you put it in the ending.
It is there. It is there. Also, all his contraptions that he brought from Omaha, or everything, like the balloon, the little tricks that he had, even things that look like the suits of the guards in Emerald City. There are nods of how he got those ideas, shapes and colors that he got the ideas that are now in Emerald City are reflected in the things that he had there. So no, it's a little. Again, I think it's the true reveal behind the curtain isn't necessarily the man himself, Jeff Goldblum, but maybe it's the bags he brings with him.
Well, will you please come back a year from now when the second one comes
Let's go.
out?
Let's go.
Yeah. What a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh,
Thank you.